my name is Katlyn and I'm one of the career consultants here. We really appreciate your guys' support and being here and supporting this event and supporting all of our lovely panelists who are here with us today. The main focus of this panel is going to be about like diversity and inclusion and belonging. But if you have any other questions in terms of like job search, being a new professional and navigating all of that, our panelists are more than equipped to help you with that. So if we want to maybe have a quick introduction of our panelists, if you guys want to maybe say like your name, where you're from, and any other fun fact that you feel like the students need to know about you, we can maybe go ahead and start with you, Savannah, and work our way down.
That's no problem. So hello everyone, my name is Savannah Culp, and I am the Recruitment and Retention Coordinator for the Indiana Department of Correction. My base facility is out of Westville Correctional Facility, but I have 3 agencies. I have LaPorte Juvenile, Westville Correctional, and then Parole District 6 as well. And I am a Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Representative for our Staff Development and Training Department.
I'm Sergeant Collinsworth. I work at Westville Correctional Facility. I'm the Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Coordinator there. We work together on a daily basis with Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging.
My name is Bob Berdelle. I'm the Talent Acquisition Manager with Enterprise Holdings in the city of Chicago and the surrounding area. Enterprise Holdings is the parent company of Enterprise Rent-A-Car, the world transportation leader. I've been with my company for 22 years, been recruiting for just over 19 of them. A fun fact, which I just learned this week, I have now interviewed more than 15,000 people for our management program. So
Wow, pretty cool.
I am very tired.
My name is Charles Williams. I'm a principal in Chicago. And in addition to the principalship, I do a ton of things educational-wise. An author, speaker, a consultant, podcast host, and a web series host. So anything education-related. I'm also serve on the City of Chicago and the Chicago Public Schools equity team. So this is one of my areas of passion. Fun fact, I once ate 3 meals in 3 states in one day.
Okay. I love that.
That's cool.
I'm Jenny Adams. I am the Human Resource Coordinator for the Hammond Menards. I have been with Menards a little over 7 years, and I'm at my 5th or 6th store. I've been doing HR for pretty much the whole Menards career. I've done the manager trainee side, manager side, and switched over to human resources. So I'm located, my home base is the Hammond Menards, but I like to travel to the different ones to help the new HRs in our area. So I know pretty much every HR in the area. So fun fact about me, I guess we can go football. I am a true Bengals fan. I am not a bandwagon jumper.
That is a lie. There's no such thing as a true Bengals fan.
Yes, it is. I have my nasty, dirty Andy Dalton jersey to prove it. So I can tell you but no, that was the biggest question of last week is, you're a bandwagon jumper? No, sorry, my stuff's legit. I have the little fuzzies to prove it. So, but I bowl and I play sports and I like to read. So I'm not as fun as everybody else, but
I think all that's fun. I read. Thank you. Well, thank you, all of you. So what's sometimes easiest with panels, because I know you all have a lot to share, is we usually maybe try to do 2 people per question, but unless you really, really got a lot to say, which is fine. So our first question is going to be, what types of questions should I ask in an interview to see if a company values diversity, or maybe even things that they should be looking for in the interview process or the job search process to know that a company supports DEI?
Well, I guess we'll start first. So with the Indiana Department of Correction, we actually ask diversity questions on all of our interviews. And because we have a diversity, inclusion, and belonging representative for every facility in the state, we are very, very pushing diversity, inclusion, and belonging throughout the facilities.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I would say if I was in your shoes, first of all, I ask how your employer defines diversity. Lots of different people have different understandings of what diversity might mean, and so you want to make sure that it syncs with your understanding and your definition of diversity. I know one of the things I do with my candidates, I always take them also then on a tour of our building, and I ask them to spend some time. So we can say anything in these spaces, right? I'm going to tell you everything that I want to tell you in order to get you into my building, because I need an employee. But you need to see that for yourselves, that diversity is actually something that we pride ourselves in. So if there is a panel, for example, as an interview like this, you'd want to see, is there diversity in that panel? Because if you're sitting there and everybody's the same and yet you're valuing diversity, there's something missing there, right? As well as you're walking throughout the school, take a look for those things. Do they have, accommodations for people of different abilities, right? If they value diversity, those things are going to be there and they'll speak for themselves. So if I was in your shoes, I would ask what that definition is and then try to make sure that you get to spend time in that organization and see if it manifests in whatever it is that you're seeing.
Real quick.
Yeah, of course.
Remember that in an interview, your questions are not just a time for you to find out information, they're also an opportunity for you to prove something about yourself. So going beyond that, and I think that's a wonderful point, talk about, in your research of an organization, look for areas of strength, look for successes in which they've had, recognitions in which they've achieved, and then ask about how diversity and inclusion have contributed to those successes. And are they able to verbalize that? Because everyone can say that we are a diverse, we have diversity within this organization, but can they verbalize it? Can they quantify it? Is it truly something they say, or is it something they do, they live and breathe? And if you talk about successes within that realm, not only are you asking them, really to prove to you that they do live and breathe it, but you're also talking about success. And that shows me something about your mindset.
Awesome, thank you. Does anyone else want to comment on that one? Because I know it's a great question. Okay, awesome. Do you have advice for a new professional who is just starting in the workplace for the first time? And maybe things might be what things they can do in their first 30 to 60 days, or things that they should be focusing on in order to prepare.
As silly as it sounds, show up to work on time. It's basic. It's basic fundamentals. You show up to work on time, use manners. To me that's huge. That says a lot about your integrity and your character. They always preach that we can teach you all the tools of the trade, but we can't teach what's inside of you. And if you have a good heart and a good work ethic and you show up to work on time, it's going to get you farther. Because it's respect, and that's huge.
Those initial couple of months, you're giving the employer the lens in which to view you. It is a competitive world out there, regardless of which field you step into. And the advice that I give you is to be aggressive. If you thought of something that you can do to improve upon yourself, to improve your situation, to make an impact in your environment, and you choose not to do it, I guarantee you somebody else is going to do it. So literally, it's doing whatever it takes, responsibly, morally, ethically, to be successful. Because that first period, it gives you an opportunity to enjoy the second period. So it's that lens in which to view you're giving your employer.
If I may, I would say to embrace transparency and vulnerability. Like, we know you're new. We know you're going to make mistakes, you're going to mess up, you're learning, and that's okay. But I'd rather you say, hey, I'm struggling with this thing. How can you help me get better at doing this thing? Instead of just trying to pretend no, I'm okay, I've got this. It's okay to say those things. I value that much more coming from an employee than having to come behind you and clean up those mistakes. Because now if we're going to be frank and honest, now you're an annoyance, right? And I'm reconsidering your space within this organization. But if you come and you say, I need help and I need support, I know that you're invested in this and that you want to learn and grow. So embrace that transparency and vulnerability.
Awesome. Do you guys have anyone else would like to add anything?
Sure, I'll piggyback off of them. Really, the first couple of months, especially with the Indiana Department of Correction, that's where we're really looking into seeing, where do we see them going in the next couple of years? Where do we see them? Can they be our next leader? Can they be our next sergeant, our next leader within the facility? We really want to focus on your long-term goals and your short-term goals within those first couple of months. But we really push for, if this isn't for you, just give it a try. Give it 6 months. If it doesn't work for you, that's okay. Let's switch to a different department within the Department of Correction. And then also, if it isn't for you, that's totally fine too. Department of Correction is not for everyone, and we try to preach that as well.
Awesome, thank you. And so I feel like with a lot of those answers, they are more like about like work-based, which is absolutely great. And then I kind of want to do like the other side of that, like how can a new professional kind of like make friends or find support within their organization? Because I know that can be really tricky for someone starting a new job.
Embrace a yes mentality. There isn't an event, there isn't a conversation that you should be desirous of being part of. You don't know what you don't know within a new organization, and that is not an indictment on you in any way, shape, or form, but it's just a lack of exposure and experience. So if you know you have a hole in your game, regardless of where it is, fill that hole. And if it's exposure and experience that you don't have, put yourself in front of people that you might be uncomfortable with. It is easy to stay in your comfort zone. It's easy to do things that you're good at. It is much more difficult to have a conversation with someone that is 20 years your senior, someone that has an extra 2 zeros on their paycheck. But the more comfortable, the more you expose yourself, the more comfortable you're going to become, and the more you're going to learn.
So with the Indiana Department of Correction, for example, our staff have a roll call first thing in the morning and first thing before they hop on shift. It's about a 15-minute, and usually staff try to get there before they attend roll call. That is a huge time to talk to your fellow coworkers and your fellow sergeants and lieutenants. Don't be afraid to walk up to people and just talk to them. Everybody is different in the workplace. You never know if you guys are going to ask the same questions, or most of you are going through the exact same thing that this person is going through. So don't be afraid to walk up and become friends with other people.
Awesome, thank you. How would you handle a situation where you are a recent hire and you are experiencing microaggressions from your supervisor or possibly from another coworker? And how would that change, if at all, if you were more established in your career? Kind of on the more serious side, I know.
So there's layers to that, right? So,
Correct.
Obviously, you're going to approach it differently if it's coming from your supervisor versus a colleague, right? If it's coming from your colleague, hopefully you could address it either with your colleague, or if that's not working, with your supervisor. If it's coming from your supervisor, it starts to get a little bit messy, right? Also, comparatively, if you're brand new or if you've been in the field for a while, right? The point I'm at right now, if you came to me with microaggressions, it's a whole different conversation, because I know that I'm comfortable enough and confident in the work that I'm doing, and if things go south, I walk into another place somewhere else, right? When you're brand new, you may not feel comfortable with that. But what I will say is, and because there's so many different options here, is don't let those things go unaddressed. Regardless of whether you're new, whether you're seasoned, whether it's your supervisor, whether it's a colleague, do not let those things go unaddressed. Because if you allow those things, right, you promote what you permit. And so the moment that you start letting those things happen, they're going to continue happening, and that becomes that culture or that relationship. So if those things happen, it is okay to stand up and say, well, not necessarily physically, right, but to say that's not okay. And I don't care whether that's your colleague or your supervisor, that's not okay. Because hopefully, and I don't want to just speak from a place of being in this for a while, but if that is the environment that you're in and you don't feel comfortable there, you need to find another environment. Do not sacrifice your dignity to be in a place that doesn't respect you, that doesn't want you to be there. There are other places out there that will do that, and if you need to walk out of that space, do so. You will be more appreciative later on than sitting around and hoping that things will get better. And that I'm speaking from experience.
Would anyone else like to comment?
Yes, I'm gonna piggyback off of him. He is 100% right. So with me being a recruitment and retention coordinator, I'm one of the first people that staff usually go to when they are having an issue. And I follow up with them with, well, did you talk to your coworker or did you talk to your supervisor about the problem? Yes, they're not doing anything. Okay, so let's go to their supervisor. We really, really push chain of command when it does come to this situation. And another thing is you always want someone in the room with you when a confrontation is happening. We don't want people to sit here and use things against you. Also, we have, like I said, Sergeant Collinsworth is our diversity, inclusion, and belonging representative. So if people are feeling harassed or feel like discrimination is coming into play, this is where we involve her as well.
Awesome. Those were really great answers. So just kind of like wrapping up too, so for more, so like you guys are really great and you have like a very specific person to go to. If this is like a brand new person and they don't know who to go to, is it usually, and it's their supervisor doing the microaggression, would you recommend HR, or is there somebody else that you would recommend for them to go to?
Well, you can kind of merge fields in the last couple of questions here. If you have built a network within your organization, if you have a mentor, you can ask advice on what the best course of action is. You can always go to HR, your recruiter, and they're going to guide you in the right direction. But simply, no one is going to fight for you like you will. And as we've talked about, don't assume that it's going to change, because without an agent of change, nothing does change. So sometimes you have to be the agent. It's not fair, but taking responsibility and changing that course of action can be a benefit to everyone.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share with that?
Just because you might be the only one that wants to come up to and, you know, start the conversation with that person, you may not be the only one that feels the way. You may have coworkers and subordinates that also may feel the same way that you are feeling as well. So do not be afraid to hold in those feelings, because, like he was saying, you will get burnt out and you will really start changing your mental state. And that's where it becomes a really big issue. So like he said, if it is not an environment for you, it is more than okay to walk away. More than okay.
Thank you. Those are like some really, really great answers on that topic. I do want to take a quick pause. Any audience questions that you would like to ask? It's okay if you don't. I just wanted to make sure I made time for everybody. Yes.
I don't know if this was already said or if you guys explained this earlier, but I walked in late and I was just curious, is being too persistent bad when you're applying for a job? Or is it good to always be persistent?
There's no right or wrong. Every industry is a little bit different. Going back to what I said, no one's going to fight for you like you will. We are human beings. Sometimes we miss deadlines. We'll tell you we'll get back to you in a certain times, and occasionally we might forget, or other pressing matters are going to come into play. So sometimes that persistence is going to be of benefit for you, or it's going to give us a friendly reminder. There are certainly times where you're going to deal with recruiters or organizations that just won't get back to you. They won't respond to you in any way, shape, or form, no matter what you do. And essentially, it's not going to matter. I would always err on the side of you, whoever you are. But it's not going to happen without you. So, for me, go get it.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Does anyone else have anything like to comment, or should I move on? I mean, I think those were great answers, so. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to do one of my questions, and I'll kind of open it back up. Maybe we can like flip-flop that way. So studies show that women who negotiate make $1 million more than those who do not over the course of their lifetime. What resources or recommendations do you have when it comes to the negotiation process?
My suggestion would be go into the interview knowing what your number is, knowing what you're comfortable with, and doing research on whatever company you are going into the interview. Know what their, I guess, average rate is for beginners, middle, and upper management. That way you know that what your expectations are, because you can't come in and say, oh yeah, I want to make $100,000 when the posting says you're only going to make, say 40. That's unrealistic. Go in there with realistic expectations. Okay, this is what my past experience is, this is what my position is, this is my title, this is what I'm going in. That way you can kind of get your figures together, so that way, you're not essentially insulted by what they're going at.
And I don't know if I may, I don't know where the rule came from that you can't have salary conversations during an interview. Like, it's okay, right? It is okay to have that conversation, because I don't want to waste your time and I don't want you to waste my time. Yep. So like we said, that if that position is 40 and you're saying, look, I need 60, I understand and I respect where you're at, but this conversation, this isn't going any further, because if that's all we can do, right? So there's no point in waiting until the third, fourth, right? You're doing paperwork, then to have that conversation. So go in, be armed, but be ready to have that conversation and to advocate for yourself. This is why I deserve this amount, right? And have that conversation Again, I don't know where that rule came from, but at least with me, it's okay to break that,
Yep.
right? Have that conversation round one and know where you're at and then make a decision from there.
You know, it's a challenging conversation to have in an entry-level position because it kind of is what it is. But as you grow within your career, whether it be promoted within an organization or leveraging an initial spot or two into a larger opportunity, as we kind of talked about, be able to quantify what your value is. Don't go in hoping for an amount. Know what the amount should be. You do that through research. You do that through benchmarking similar positions in organizations like the one that you're talking to. And like I said, quantifying what you've done in the past, numerically, how you've made an impact in the environment in which you're in. That's taking the decision out of it. This is my value. This is what I'm worth. And if they choose not to, you have value in other places.
And I'm also the type of person that will tell you in an interview, hey, this is how much it is, this is what we pay. I will give you all the numbers because, like they said, you will be wasting your time. It's a lot of money to hire somebody, regardless of, what it is. Whether it's a morning staff position or a manager. It's expensive to hire somebody. And you don't want to, BS the numbers. Just come out and flat and tell them. That way you know what it is.
Thank you. How's the audience feeling? Any questions that are coming up? Yes.
I have a question about asking about turnover. Like, if during an interview you ask how many yes. Okay.
So maybe how would you ask that?
I was just interviewing a new teacher the other day, and he asked me that. Well, why are you hiring? Like, what is the turnover rate? And that's a good question. And pay attention to your employer's initial reaction, right? Just watch because if there's high turnover rate, you want to know that. Why is there such a high turnover rate? Is it just a job that has that, or is there a toxic culture in that place that's driving that high turnover? And so there's no reason why you shouldn't ask those questions. If you can find that information out, even if you find other people who work there and have those conversations, but definitely ask that question and see, and there's no necessarily skirting around it, just ask. Why is my position open? And or, what is the turnover rate here? And see what they say.
There's been these situations that I've heard other people tell me about how there was a person that they were interviewing and they said that you're too qualified for this job. Like you have too much credentials, I guess. Like you mastered and you're looking for this position, you just don't, it doesn't work. And they didn't get hired because of that. What do you say to that type of situation?
It's definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if that was my case, you're never overqualified, ever. The reality is, what I'm willing to pay for this position doesn't match what you're bringing to the table. That's the reality. Because I don't care, I mean, if you have a PhD and you want to come be a TA at my building, I'm not going to stop you, right? But understand, I can't pay you PhD money for this position, right? So the overly qualified thing is kind of a nice way, right, to say that those things aren't going to meet up, right? But that's, from my understanding, I've never said that to anybody, because that's never true. I've never known anybody to be overly qualified for any position. It's just whether or not there's going to be synchron, right? If they're going to be synced between what you need and want and what I'm willing to do for that position.
Good question. Any other questions from the audience? Yours are doing great. Alrighty, keep thinking. I'll ask one of mine, but all right. This one we asked at our last diversity panel. I think it can bring up some good convo. As an employer, how do you navigate the conversation around possibly requiring all of your employees to be vaccinated? A question we also keep getting is, should students be disclosing this on their resume or application?
On your resume, no. On an application, you need to be truthful on your application, simple as that. I think I was here for that last panel,
Yes.
and there's still no right or wrong answer. I mean, the world is the world blew up, and we're all playing a game of whack-a-mole. I mean, we're just dealing with a lot of different variables coming at us at one time, and each company is going to be a little bit different. If a company requires it, there's no way around it, unless you have an exception to it. I don't know if I answered the question. But it's
Yeah.
the way that you're asking this question with a little bit of, here it comes. It's the way we all think about it right now. And it's going to be like this for the next few years.
I think as an applicant, you would want to know, right, what is that company's stance, right? If you are against it and that company is saying this is an absolute, then you know, right? But like we're saying is that it goes back and forth, right? We're starting to see like the mask mandates in schools, and I'm in Illinois, and so now they're like, nope, never mind, you can't enforce it, but we're enforcing it in our district. Everything's all over the place. But understand where you are at and understand the expectations of your potential employer. That's the best thing to do. And like we said, right, be honest on that thing. Like if you're not vaccinated, please don't say you are. Right? We've seen like Roger. I mean, but just be honest. I mean, our rule is that if you're not vaxxed, you have to do weekly testing, right? And I have teachers who are like, absolutely not. I'm not doing the vaccine. I do the testing. So all right, that's fine. Right? At the end of the day, what's really nice is sometimes if that decision's made above you, like in my case, like I'm not the one making up those rules. I just need you to make sure that you're doing what you need to do. But understand where you're at and whether or not that's what your employer requires.
And understand that with COVID, it is an ever-changing policy, so
Absolutely.
it changes pretty much daily, if not weekly, or weekly, if not daily. But just be understandable. We're just abiding by whatever's thrown at us. So that it's kind of a tough situation, but it goes back to respect. Be respectful of it. Don't. Well, this isn't what I signed. Okay, it changes. Unfortunately, that is the world we live in. And just be understanding of it, Yes, ma'am.
This is kind of an off-topic question, but what do you say to the following this phenomenon? I think you're saying that bachelor's degrees are becoming obsolete, and that in some ways masters too.
Are you guys able to hear
The
her okay?
higher ed, masters and
Bachelor's
doctorates.
degrees and master's degree being obsolete.
Is it bachelor's?
Bachelor's, like
Bachelor's and masters.
some people are starting to say that you have to have a higher level of training, I guess, to get a job that you want, rather than like 20 years ago you could get easy.
I think it all depends. From an HR perspective, a degree is great. But so is work experience. Trade schools. Trade schools, I believe, are going to be making a comeback because of our, student loan debt, which is another subject. But I think trade schools are going to be making a comeback, and I think work experience is going to come back to be where it's equal to a 4-year education. But that's my personal.
But also stay in school here.
But yeah, sorry. But
It is industry specific. Sometimes it is company specific. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't think there's a giant push to devalue education in any way, shape, or form. And it depends on what your personal goals are. If you're looking for a good job, that's one thing. If you're looking for a growth-oriented career, that's another. And there's, the success in education proving to us that you have achieved goals. I think there's tremendous value in that. And I don't think that'll ever be devalued.
I'm gonna piggyback off of him. It just depends with our, like everyone was saying, our agencies as well. So if you wanna be one of our deputy commissioners, yes, we want a degree, but also if you have 15, 12 years in a facility, we definitely put that into play as well. So definitely experience is huge within the industry as well.
Just put like a little career center 2 cents in there. And that's why it's super important that you guys come to events like this, have these conversations, push yourselves out of your comfort zones to get those internships or externships, all those types of things. Because what they're saying, they're taking those into consideration on top of all the academic stuff that you guys are doing here. Any other audience questions? These are great.
Oh, one of yours.
I guess one of mine. It's fine. So when so similar to the diversity question, a question I get a lot from students is about disclosing their LGBTQIA identity to an employer. Do I have to do this? If I choose to do this, is there like a better time for it? I don't want to say like better. Is there like an informal way, a formal way? I don't know if any of you guys like personally can speak on that, but if you just have like general thoughts on like this topic.
Yeah, it's, you will never be asked about it, and the right time for you to talk about it is the time that you want to talk about it. It's as simple as that. You are not beholden to anyone with regard to any of your individual situations. Simple as that.
If you choose to speak about it, that is completely up to you. Most agencies, or I should say some agencies, might have committees or other people that you might want to join. So like Westville Correctional Facility, we have a Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee that we meet once a month. If you are comfortable with coming to that, that is cool. But again, like he was saying, you do not have to disclose anything you do not want to. It is completely open and free with whatever conversation you want to have.
I have a follow-up question with that. So let's say you are, I'm trying to think of like a word. If you're like you're transitioning, like transgender, a common question is like application versus resume name. Do you guys have like thoughts on that? Do you think that like gets confusing? Like how do you have thoughts on how that could be addressed?
I would just bring it up right when it's initially started, just like say I know my resume says this, but I'd like to be called this. It's like saying like my name's Elizabeth, but I'd rather be called this. It's just something simple like that.
Yes.
How do you sell skills that you don't have? And I'm talking about hard skills like softwares and programming, because everyone can say that I can done that, but how do you stand out?
Did you say that you don't have?
Skills that you don't have, yeah.
So can I just do a clarifying question?
Yes.
So you are trying to sell a skill to your potential employer that you don't actually have?
I would like to apply to a job with some skills that I do have, but some I lack on.
Okay. Because I was going to say, please don't do that. Okay.
So you're saying if like you know Microsoft Office, you know Word, but you need help in PowerPoint, how do you sell it?
Well, I would like to know about those skills that are harder than Microsoft Office, such as programming, softwares, that in my industry, many employers need or even require, but at the same time, I want to demonstrate that I am capable of learning them. But a lot of applicants can say, hey, I can learn that very quickly. So how do you stand out?
So I would like to kind of connect it back to a question I was asked earlier. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with like micro-credentials, right? So that's a great way to say, hey, look, like I'm an entry level, these are my skills, but I'm growing obviously. So demonstrate to me that you're growing in those areas. So if you're in a current course for say Python or something, that is not my area. So I'm just going to throw words out there that I think I know. Like demonstrate to them that, hey, I'm pursuing this. I'd rather know that is something that you're growing in, and obviously I'm going to make decisions based off of that, as opposed to you pretending as if you already know it, or just saying like, I don't have that skill, but it's required. Yeah, but I don't know it. Why are you applying for this job, right? So demonstrate that as we said earlier, that aggression. Hey, this is something I'm currently pursuing, and while I'm doing that, I would love to get my foot in at your company because I know when I have that, I'm going to be an amazing asset for your company. Just being honest and transparent. That I know we keep saying that, but it keeps coming back to that because later on it's going to bite you if you don't.
within an interview, you are creating your own narrative. So if you've identified something within yourself that you don't have today, that's okay. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. But you are at a wonderful university that's going to give you access to all these different skills and abilities in which you will need eventually. So in this interview, don't tell me about what you don't have. Tell me about what you are doing to acquire the skills you need to be successful. Are you there as of yet? No, but if you demonstrate to me that you have the ability to learn, the ability to identify and address certain situations, I'm often not hiring a person to do a job. I'm hiring a person. I want to believe in a person. If I believe in you, I can teach you the rest for the most part. And if I can't, well, then you're not going to get hired. But that should be in the posting.
Do we have any other audience questions? Okay. So those are more of like my formal questions I had. Do you have any like last words of wisdom or anything you would like to give to our students as we wrap up?
So my closing thought, I know I talked a lot, so I'm sorry.
We love it. We love participation.
Understand who you are and why you're doing the work that you're planning to do. Right? I do this work with my teachers all the time. Know your purpose, know your mission, know your why. And make sure that that company's values and missions, and that they're aligned with yours. I know that coming in, so I may not look it, but I have a daughter that's about the age of some of you, and that's my second to youngest daughter. My baby's 18, we have 5, all right? My oldest made us grandparents. So I understand, because we've gone through this with them. It's scary. I get it, as you're going in and you're just trying to get that first job, you're trying to get your student loan started and paid off. I get that. But be comfortable with knowing who you are and what it is that you're supposed to do, and find a job that's aligned with that. It'll pay off in the long run as you are happy in a position. You're not going to be happy every single day. Everything's not going to always go well. But finding that instead of just doing a job that it just pays the bills. And it's okay to say that. I mean, figure out who you are. All right? Find a job that matches that.
What he said. This job market is unlike anything that any of us have ever seen. Organizations are starved for talent. We are here today, yes, to make a contribution to this university, to make a contribution for you, but we would love to take some people away from this event, and bring them within your organization. Companies are lined up to talk to you, while you are still in school. Take advantage of that. Don't eliminate organizations. Don't eliminate industries until you know as much as you possibly can about them. Once you gain as much information, once you've gone through interviews, once you have multiple offers on the table, that's when you make your decisions. But don't say no until you know. The minute you graduate, you become one of the huddled mass lining up to talk to organizations. But right now, take advantage of this opportunity. Get in front of as many employers as you can. Talk to the wonderful young woman in a pea green-ish. There are 3 different career fairs coming up in the next 2 months within this university. If you're not attending all of them, you're doing yourself a disservice. Take advantage of this time like you are tonight.
Dress the part. Dress for success. Doesn't have to be a suit and tie or a dress. Just something that is presentable and is clean. And that somebody in a nice shirt and a pair of jeans is better than someone in a wrinkly suit. Dress the part. I know, you have to look presentable. Presentable means showing up to an interview 5 to 10 minutes beforehand. Lombardi time, if anybody's heard of that. Make sure you are there. Use manners. Show up, please and thank you. And be polite.
Don't be afraid to ask questions too. The last thing that we all always ask at the end is, do you have any questions for us? Have questions for them. That is a huge selling point. If you are asking us questions, we know you're interested in our position that we are offering you. So please, please ask questions.
Awesome. Well, that's it. Thank you guys so much. Those are all great last words of wisdom. Thank you so much for being here.